Okay. Okay. Day 18. We are back at the other location. It doesn't matter. We are going to get as much done as fast as possible here. Tomorrow is going to be a really long day. Today, probably not so much, but we will still get something done. So I'm actually going to sit here because basically what I need to do right now is read. So let's eat this little granola bar here and read. Let's read. Oh, here I go. Yeah, good. Yeah. I'm just reading through step 1 right now of section 5, and I just want to confirm that host version ID is the data field specifically pertaining to holding open dialog states. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, that's what I meant. Like it's the pointer to the row that the open dialog states are referring to. Okay, and then really quickly just explain awaiting ID. Yeah, yeah, I remember. One rule I want to explicitly add in the pack building is that there should never be duplicate rows added to the pack. Like if a memory link and a dialog state points to the same row, it should only get added once, for example. So basically just a rule to make sure we're not duplicating entries in the pack. Make sure anywhere else inside of um, the Life OS Phase 3 transfer contracts plan file that this change is accounted for. Okay. Okay, give me the most efficient order of read through. I'm currently working through section 5 right now. I'm on step 2. Once I finish section 5, what should I read next in order to make sure that I've read through any of the recent changes we've made? I'm not just specifically talking about uh, this change only regarding uniqueness. I'm talking about all the previous changes we made as well. So what branches? What was the type of map? Not sure. Okay, so I'm looking at outputs right now inside of step 2. Populated branches and mapping status make sense. I'm not 100% sure what draft capture is doing. Missing context hints also makes sense. That's kind of what fuels like the later step 3 routing. So yeah, draft capture, I'm not 100% sure what it is you're getting at here. I see. So basically, the draft capture is essentially what would end up being inside of the input capture row, um, if this like passes all of the tests in order to reach the persisted data state. Is this draft capture just for the input capture data table, or is it for deliverables as well? Like, does the draft capture include all of that, or what is actually inside of it? Let's make it explicit. I am making um it's it's the future of how I think humans and LLMs are going to interact in day-to-day life. And what I mean by that is it's basically an app that functions as an operating system for your life. And what I mean by that is basically, I can show you. Oh, I 100% know what I'm building. I very deeply understand what I'm building. I don't know where you got that conclusion from, but I'll show you. So the first major layer of the product is the ability to do something like this. I have a meeting today with Shampooing Daily at, let's say, 6. So the first major thing that the product supports is scheduling via natural language in a way that is much better than anything that exists in the world right now. It's a lot smarter, it's a lot more natural and fitting with the way humans actually do things. So here, for example, it picked up an inference on time because I didn't say AM or PM, so I can make a swap if I want to. And then it also doesn't know how long that meeting is because I didn't tell it. It'll be about half an hour. The system tracks context over like across user input, so it can look back and refer to different things that you were saying, and it knows how to connect the dots for the scheduling layer. And then this is essentially the core product loop, the ability to schedule like this, but the real purpose of the app is built on top of this core functionality, which is essentially the ability to gather context around these events that get scheduled in your life, and you can essentially associate the user's context with what's going on in their day-to-day life. So, did their actions actually line up with what they scheduled? What was their mood like during the time they did the activity? Their energy, how did reality compare to their expectations? Um, and then there's also toolkits that plug into this. So, for example, say you scheduled a gym session, there's a fitness toolkit inside of the app, which basically integrates an entire fitness layer into it. So you can build things like workouts, you can build meal plans, gym routines, like all the things that would go into a fitness toolkit. And then the idea is basically over time when you collect this type of context, you you get this coaching layer essentially. So long term, what the system does is it will start recommending things for you. It will be able to plan for you without you saying anything because it learns from you. And then it can also help optimize based on where it figures out, maybe your context suggests that you're not doing things optimally and it's able to detect that and then come up with a better solution for you. And then, yeah, it integrates across all the different domains of life. So, like fitness, finances, if you're a student, all those things. So, it's kind of like an operating system for your life no matter what you do. So, yeah, I think I definitely know what I'm building. Is this guy still here or what? Or he's a typical 99% sheeper. Nobody knows. You are still here. It is nothing like a Google Calendar. No. It's like Google Calendar on crack mixed with um okay, what does Google Calendar do? Google Calendar lets you build a schedule, right? And the way it lets you build schedule is in a very outdated way. And it also does this thing. So I can explain it to you if you want what the problem is with Google Calendar, and then I'll explain the difference. So Google Calendar, the way scheduling works is it's it's very rigid in the way that it lets you use templates, and also it forces activities to be tied to clock times, meaning like if you want to have a routine for your gym, it's always gonna tie it to the time that you tell it. Like it's always 6 p.m. on Monday, right? Which is actually a really ineffective way to do things because that's not how humans work at all. The more natural way is by having templates that have a specific duration of time but are not bound to specific clock times. Because it's usual that someone goes to the gym for an hour, but the time they go, that depends on the day, right? Like maybe you're running late, maybe blah, 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 whatever. So Google Calendar, in the way that they structure time data, essentially, is very flawed. So first of all, it's a way better structure on how to schedule and have reusable templates. And the reason is because the way it interacts with clock times is very different. So that's number one. Number two, Google Calendar has nothing to do with adaptive coaching in real time, context collection regarding, your mood, energy levels, like when you scheduled something versus when you actually did it or didn't do it. Like there's a lot of missing information in Google Calendar. Like all it does is schedule you something and that's it. This is schedule something in a better way, collect context around all those things, have toolkits that plug into those schedules. So, like, for example, if you have a gym block, you can tap it, it'll open it up, it'll show you your whole workout, your entire set plan, all the animations for your exercise routine, everything like that, all in one place. And then over time, there's a coaching layer built on top of that that given the context it collects from you will help you optimize your life. So is it like Google Calendar? No, not even close. Is there a scheduling element? Yes. Is it like Google Calendar? No. Anyways, that's what it is. You either get it or you don't. And if you don't get it, you will see it on your phone one day and then you will understand. Okay. It is very complex for vibe coding, yes, because people don't actually understand what vibe coding means. I'm trying to change the culture a little bit around what vibe coding actually is. Vibe coding is not, hey, build me an app that makes me $1 million. Like hand build it. Like that's not how it works. Like what I'm doing right now is I'm very carefully. No, I'm not. But I am a systems thinker. I have degrees in physics and neuroscience. I know how to think, and I understand data structures, and I understand systems. And what vibe coding actually is the ability to communicate to an LLM your systems and then structure the working of those systems in a data set that you do actually understand and design yourself. And then what the LLM's job is to write the code for those systems through that data set, which you actually design yourself. So vibe coding is not like, I mean, at least it shouldn't be. If you're building anything serious, it shouldn't be like, just build this for me. That doesn't work well. You need to be able to understand systems. You need to be able to understand data structure. You need to understand why things need to exist, what you need in order for your app's functionality to work on the data side. And then yeah, like what I'm doing right now is basically that. I'm building essentially I'm reworking the data structure right now because it wasn't quite doing what I wanted it to do. So I'm fixing it. And what I'm doing right now is I'm very carefully going through the entire data structure and I'm writing prompts for the LLMs essentially, how they take user input and map it to the data structure in order to get the outcome that I want. So, I mean, this is what vibe coding is supposed to be like, in my opinion, but I would say it's a very high level of vibe coding. It's not what most people are doing. Um, yeah, that's my understanding of it. This is how you get the most out of LLMs. To be honest, like vibe coding is just a marketing thing. Like I don't really care what it's called, you know. It's the catchy word nowadays that people want to say. What about you? Do you do any computer science work or anything like that? What do you do? Here, I have a question. Okay, so just for some clarity here, if we're not proposing any sort of deliverable structure inside of draft capture, when are we actually building that side? I'm assuming once the input capture is persisted, that would be like a follow-up step at the end of this workflow that we're building, something along those lines. So it's basically like figure out if we want to save the input capture layer first, and then after we do that, build the deliverable. Yeah, okay. Makes sense. Yeah. I think metadata doesn't think we will keep metadata or else it would be lost, right? So I see here you have metadata as an optional entry inside of draft capture, but I don't think that's possible because if we don't have it here, don't we just lose that data when we do need to persist to the input capture table? Yeah, make this more explicit. It doesn't read this way in the document right now. What's on the left? It's have you heard of RuneScape? I'm trying to play into the whole vibe coding culture thing where all you do is talk to your robot and you play video games while it does everything for you. So it's just a part of the, you know, just a part of the culture. But yeah, this is a more of a boring stream because I'm not building anything right now. I'm like planning for building. So if you want to see what actually goes on in about probably another day or two when I'm actually building everything I'm doing right now and the planning side, I'm live literally every day. So if you follow and you're interested in like what it is that we're building and you want to see how I actually implement all these plans and everything, it's definitely worth checking out. Whether you're just curious or you do some sort of similar work, it'll definitely be worth it. Okay, this makes more sense. Okay, this is looking good. Top our supposes memory links. So it's generic. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So this is, okay, good. So this was a pretty big idea that I had. I think it was yesterday. this whole temporal side of things about how you can say like something in past, present, or future tense. If I didn't catch this, it definitely would have been a problem in the future. Yeah, exactly. So this is just past. Okay, so this is just for the merge back later, for to add these temporal subcategories for states of being. So present should be I need to read the future one. So yeah, so it's like if you say like I think I'm gonna be tired tomorrow after a long day today, on the next day, like or on any utterance, it needs to basically be looking back for those future tense inputs and then making links if it finds any. That's what future does, and then past is like if it's like the next day and say you went to the gym the day before, you can say like I was so tired at the gym yesterday. So it would go back and it would attach that state of being to the prior event that already happened, and then in the present tense it's basically like you saying like, oh, I'm so tired today, but like I gotta go to the gym at 6. Yeah, exactly. Right, there starts here. This is based on the input. It will do this extended capture window. So 3A is looking for more context and 3B is looking for any context to see if there is any map. This always happens, and this depends on the nature of the input. And if there was already a map detected, 3A is the case where there was, 3B is the case where there wasn't. So this always happens. You already read this. So one thing I just thought of is the same way we persist open dialogues in the dialogue state column, it might actually be more efficient to do the same type of thing with these future tense. Okay, so one idea I just had is the same way we persist dialogue states in the open dialogue column of the input capture table, it might be a good idea to do the same type of thing for these um, future tense state of being utterances, because it seems a little bit inefficient on token usage and like it's just unnecessary querying over and over and over again when you could basically just have a column of all listed future utterances and then just check that, right? And see if anything maps to what's within those columns or within that column. There would need to be some sort of restriction on that, right? Like, um, it either needs to get like a date stamp within that column, like in some way it needs to not just be able to attach like a future tense thing from like a month ago to something that's happening today, unless they actually were referring to something from a month ago. Um, so yeah, it's just an idea. The only issue I see with it is it could get very big potentially, that column, and I don't really have a good way of maintaining its hygiene because in the dialogue state case, uh, the row gets cleaned up every time a dialogue state is resolved, right? Um, and one thing I'm actually noticing now about the design of the dialogue state is in the case where it doesn't get resolved, essentially the dialogue state just stays open. So we probably actually need a rule for the dialogue state where we essentially remove things from the open dialogues after a certain amount of time, I guess, would be the best way to do it. Because we don't want to keep looking back into old open dialogues that have nothing to do with anything anymore. Um, right? Like it's not always the case that an open dialogue will get resolved. Um, I'm not sure if I had already accounted for a way to close off these types of dialogues. Can you look back through the North Star and see if we handled this already? And if we didn't, we definitely need to. And then we basically need to come up with some sort of similar idea for this future tense state of being utterances, because what I'm thinking right now is it might be a little bit over queried when it can be done a lot more efficiently if it's just in, the most recent row, the same way dialogues is, right? And then it's just a collection of like some certain period of time's most recent future tense state of being utterances, something along those lines. Fancy. Yeah, honestly, this makes a lot of sense the way you just detailed all of it. Let's go ahead and implement that. Make sure you account for the additional context needed to handle the merge with the North Star later, so all of this is seamlessly integrated with what already exists inside of that other file. Yeah, so go ahead and do that, and then point me to where I should start reading from again, so I can see all of these changes. Basically, it should be somewhere within section 5, I think. But if it's not, let me know. And then, yeah, give me the full list of what I should be reading again and in what order. Transmission. Transgender. 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 You know what I want to do actually? I want to. One minor thing I'm concerned about right now is I might be spending too much time reading over this document. Um, it is important to make sure that it is very well done because this is essentially the glue that holds all of the data infrastructure together and determines the app's functionality. So it's not that it's not worth reading. I just want to make that process as efficient as possible. Um, with that being said, I want you to do a full sweep of the North Star and the Life OS Phase 3 transfer contracts file and see if you can point out any major gaps or things that, need to be accounted for still. You know what? Hold on. Before I do this. I've read this, so read 6 as well. So one thing I'm a bit concerned about is that I might be spending too much time reading over this document. Not because it's not worth reading, because this is essentially the most important document of the entire thing, because it's the glue that holds all of the data structures functionality together and will essentially determine whether or not the app works. So it's not that it's not worth reading, I just want to do this as efficiently as possible. Instead of reading over what we've already done, I think maybe a better thing to do would be to continue on to later sections that we have not written yet. I think we're on section 7. I think we should try to go through all of these quickly and write them all out, so 7 all the way through the end. And then I think after that, we should, in another prompt, do a full sweep of the North Star and this file and see if you can identify any key places that actually need to be read, rather than me manually by eye trying to figure that out. And then you can point me to more, you know, specific places to go read because I think overall we're in a very strong place. And it's only maybe very minor edge cases that still need to be considered, but overall, I think the structure is pretty close. Feel free to push back on that. Don't just agree with me. I want you to actually be very critical with this because this is essentially the entire functionality of the app banking on this. So yeah, what do you think about this type of plan? The problem is like when you're rereading it, you're reading a lot of what you already know is good because you've already read it. And what you actually want is to be pointed to what's new and be reading that, which takes like a fraction of a fraction of the time. Because I've already read. Not only have I read, I wrote all of this. I designed it and then read it again and again and again. So yeah, so I do want you to do all those things, but I also want you to. I'm just making sure it kind of reads like you have already planned to do this, but I just want to be very clear that you are actually writing out the sections that we haven't yet. I believe that should be sections like 7 and 8 for sure. And then 9 to 12, I'm not sure if we touched that yet, other than like outlining it, but what we were doing was going through one by one and actually writing the full details of them, and we for sure did 5 and 6, and then I know we were gonna do 7 after I had read everything, but yeah, I just want to make sure we're actually writing the full version of each of these sections. To read this entire file again will take a long time. Like, it's very long. Like, very long. And it's not an easy read. It's, like, obviously very complicated, so. And also, what happens is because it's complicated, your brain, when you read something you already understand and it's familiar to you because you've read it already, you start to zone out because you're like, yep, 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 got it, yep. And then what you do is you'll skip over things that you haven't actually really explicitly read yet, and you're just like auto accepting them. So the better thing is when you get pointed to the things you actually need to read, so you skip that like brain shut off type of thing. Yep, exactly. So basically, what I want you to do is do the full write of section 7 to 12, and then I'll give you other instructions after that. Um, Make sure while you do the writing of this sections, you do have all the necessary context from this file as well as the North Star, so everything is coherent and makes sense. This prompt will likely take a bit of time. Not likely, it will take time. And what I want to do, I basically want to go on like the 5.5 model for GPT and get it to look basically across all of the North Star and this. First thing I tell it to look across this file just with the context. Actually, I can just do it in parallel. It's fine. I'll just do both at the same time. So one thing I'm curious about is section 7 here the actual prompts? Or do we turn this document into the prompts after? No, so it's just the prompts that we need. So these may be the actual contracts here. Okay, it looks like you did a pretty good first job here. I just have a few questions. So I know initially when we started designing this document that this is not actually the prompts that the LLM will use to do this work. It's essentially outlining all of the things that need to be considered when going into those prompts. At least that's my current understanding. Or is it the case that section 10, 11, and 12 actually are these prompts, or is it still outlining essentially the rules that need to go into these prompts? What I'm wondering is if we have not actually explicitly written prompts for the LLMs already, um, where are we going to write those? When is a good time to actually do that? What file should they live in? Should they go in here, or should that be something that happens after this document gets merged with the North Star, and then we write the actual LLM prompts following like one full coherent canonical document? So what I'm about to do is I'm going to go in a new chat and I'm going to go on the best model and I am going to say, go look here in the workspace overview, read the problem solution and summary and what we're trying to accomplish with this app, and then go read the North Star file and go read the transfer contracts file and figure out if this is going to do what we want it to do. Figure out if there's any like gaps, missing holes, and then check all the documents for inconsistencies, all that type of stuff. Yeah. So I'm gonna use this chat to do it first because it has a lot of context. I'm gonna get it to make any final changes it thinks it needs to, then I'm gonna go and do the same thing in the other one. Okay, so what I want you to do right now is essentially try to save me some time having to manually read this entire transfer contracts file because it's getting pretty long and it just feels a little bit inefficient to read it when you can read it a lot faster than me. And I think you have enough context now to think well enough about whether or not we're in a good place or where the gaps still exist or what we still need to do. So explicitly what I want you to do is read over the transfer contracts file, do a full sweep. Also read over the entire LifeOS North Star file and compare these two files make sure you look inside of the workspace overview directory of the repo and read the problem solution and problem summary. I also want you to think about whether or not what we've designed across these plan files is going to actually accomplish the functionality that we detailed in the overview section for the problem solution and the product summary, like what we're trying to actually get the app to do. I want you to check and see if there's any gaps, anything that's stale, any contradictions. I want you to let me know if you can find any, what you see, and then explicitly for what you're allowed to write to, you're still only allowed to write to the transfer contracts plan file. If there's anything that you would want to, update in the North Star instead of actually writing to the North Star, that should be just more context added to the transfer contracts file, indicating what things need to change in the North Star when we do that merge. I need you to be extremely careful in your thinking. Again, this is the glue that holds the entire app together. So this is the section that needs to work well. And this needs to become one very strong, coherent, canonical document. And by the way, this doesn't mean that I'm not going to read it. I'm just trying to make this as efficient as possible. So when I do actually read it, it's in the right place to read. Basically, what I want to do, I think, is essentially read this North Star doc one time and go through it basically with my iPad and draw out what's going on. Like I want, I want like a PowerPoint presentation. Ideally, if I could, I would have a PowerPoint presentation that explains basically what is going on here. That would be like extremely useful. So maybe I'll see if it can do that. And then what I would do is I would read through that presentation basically and follow along with it as I read through the North Star file, because that would make my understanding of it very strong and it would point out any remaining issues. And then also what it really does, it lets future people who might have to work on this have something to refer to. Because to get somebody else up to speed on what I understand about this would be very difficult unless they're like extremely, extremely intelligent. And even then it would still take a lot of time. Just because there's so much going on. Yeah, while it does this, I'll be right back. Gotta go do something. Yes, go ahead and do that expanded pass for 14 and 16. And then after that, we will do another entire sweep.
Have to understand that you have to look like a fool in the beginning in order to become a master later, and just get over yourself. Understand that no.
Yep, do that pass to consistency sweep now. I know you said that you don't need to look over the entire North Star document again, as well as across this entire document, but I want you to do it anyways. We are still not merging with the North Star. I just want you to do a final pass across both of these documents. And again, you are still explicitly working inside of the transfer contracts plan file. Okay, so it's gonna go into 5.5 after this. And I actually want to see the type of usage that this does. So North Star is so basically what I'm doing right now is I'm like I said, I'm rebuilding important data structure, and the North Star is basically one canonical document that has all of the information regarding what is going into everything, basically. It's like a master document. That's why it's called North Star. And the way I'm doing it is every time I'm building something new, I'll do another plan file, like separate from the North Star. Like, for example, I'm working on this file right now called transfer contracts. And what I do is I basically build the next part of what needs to go into the North Star in a separate file. And then when it's done and I'm happy with it, then I merge it back into the North Star. So there's always like one working master document, and then every time something new needs to be added, I add it in a separate file, build that one very specific thing, and then it gets merged back in with the North Star after. So the simplest way I can explain it is the North Star is the plan file that carries all of the information regarding what it is we're about to build, basically. And then anytime I want to add a new thing to that file, I make a new file, build it, and then take whatever gets added in that new file back to the original file and merge it all together so everything is coherent and stable. So it's basically like you're building that master North Star file like piece by piece. And the reason you do that is because LLMs just function better when um, the file size is smaller, obviously. They go faster. They also don't hallucinate as much. So it's beneficial to work in smaller files when you're building like the plan for the first time. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go in a new chat and we're gonna go to why does it say hold on. I don't know why it says medium. That's new. It usually doesn't say that. Anyways, let's try it in GPT. I want you to look inside of the workspace overview directly and specifically read the problem solution markdown file and the product summary markdown file to get an understanding of what it is we're trying to build. Then what I want you to do is read across the Life OS North Star data architecture plan file. If you need me to point you to that file, let me know. And I also want you to read across of the Life OS Phase 3 transfer contracts plan file. So just to give you some context what's going on here, basically we are redesigning the data structure that supports the app's functionality. And that's what we're working on. The Life OS North Star data architecture plan file contains the bulk of the information and context right now. This is functioning kind of like a main branch would on GitHub. And we are currently working on a branch off of the main branch right now, being the Life OS Phase 3 transfer contracts plan file, where we are specifically designing essentially the transfer contracts. When you read through the North Star file as well as the transfer contracts file, you'll get a better understanding of what I'm talking about. Your goal is basically to read all of the things that I just told you and figure out whether or not you think we're in a good place regarding this data structure being able to support the app's functionality. Specifically, our goal right now is to get the core product loop working, meaning scheduling. We're not worried about the coaching layer right now or toolkits. So, yeah, don't worry about that for now. An explicit rule is that you're not allowed to write to the North Star file. The current working file is the transfer contracts file. That's where anything needs to be written. If any changes need to be made to the contents of that file, go ahead and make changes there. And any context that you see needed to be added to that transfer contracts plan file that would be needed to facilitate the merge back with the North Star, you can also add within the transfer contracts file. There should be a section already there for that. So very simply, your goal is to figure out what's going on here. If you think that what is entailed across these two plan files is going to do a good job of supporting app functionality, and then I want you to very rigorously identify how well the system is designed, and I want you to try to point out any gaps anything you see that should be made differently or better if you think this is going to work well. I basically just want you to think through what we've designed and basically give me your honest opinion on it. I don't want you to just agree with me and say that it's in a good spot. I want you to very, very carefully analyze this and figure out what it is you think and then let me know. So the goal here is basically to they do now. So the only reason they do is because in this case is because there's so much context um that they have to work with. So the way I have it set up, it does do well, but in general, you're right. Yeah, like the LLMs do worse when you give them a lot of text, but because there's so much surrounding context, it does very well. Can I just copy the file path? Yeah, like in general, you're right. They don't do as well when you give them a lot of text, but I mean, you'll see. It's not actually, let me be more clear. It's not that they don't do well with a lot of text. They don't do well with a lot of text that's incoherent and doesn't make sense. If you give it a lot of text and it makes sense, they do just fine. It's like the problem that people run into is that they give a lot of text and it doesn't make any sense. So as long as you're coherent within like a big input, it's completely fine. Like this thing can reason across like 100,000 lines of code. Like obviously it can handle like a few paragraphs of English. You know what I mean? The issue is when you don't know how to communicate well and your text sucks, but the length of the text doesn't actually really matter that much. So tomorrow I am gonna manually read everything, but it's too late in the day right now to do that. I don't like making important decisions like this or doing high level thinking at this time of the day because the brain's just not as fresh. So what I'm trying to do is basically set myself up for tomorrow, so I can actually do this manually. I do not do well at completely independently trusting these LLMs to get everything right because um, as good as they are, they don't always totally do things perfectly. And I'm a big believer in investing a lot of time upfront to get it right, so you don't have to deal with issues later. But I can feel the my current mental capacity is not like 100%, so like I could do it right now, but I'll just get a worse result than if I just wait till tomorrow morning. So okay, I want you to very clearly explain to me exactly what it is you just did inside of the transfer contracts plan file. And I also want you to give me a summary of the questions I asked you previously regarding, um, the goal of the app, where you think we stand now, how well you think this data structure will support its functionality, um, any edge cases you think maybe we haven't tested or you think might expose weaknesses. Yeah, basically, I just want like a high level summary of where you think we're at and what you think we need to do next. So it looks like all of these tests it ran are passing, which is a good sign. So hold on. This is as the previous one, I believe, section 21. So here is what I need to read basically right now. Right now I'm just doing this. I was working in sales before this, making good money. I do very well in sales, but I don't want to sell someone else's thing. I'd rather just build my own thing and sell it. And yeah, it does not make sense to do anything other than if you're trying to start a business, you need to spend 100% of your time on it. So yeah, no job right now doesn't make sense. Um, Honestly, I really believe in the idea. Like, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll make this thing popular. because I know it's a good idea. If I can build it right and it works, I will do whatever it takes to make sure people see it and use it. So step one is build it properly, which I think is definitely the hardest part. I think if I can build it properly and it works how I've envisioned it to work, it will be very easy to do the rest. Not very easy, but easier than building it. Like really all that's gone into it so far is like LLM costs, right? So however much that's been, like nothing crazy, honestly. Like a few months of subscriptions to Cursor, like whatever that is, and then if you want to consider cost of not working, you could consider that as well, I guess. But actual dollars spent, yeah, like just Cursor subscriptions, because there's no marketing to be done yet, right? So the real expenses come once it's time to make content, pay for ads, um, maybe do like an influencer campaign. The subscription is 60 US, so I don't know where you're from, but 60 US, and we've had this for at least a few months now, so nothing crazy. But we may need to go up to, sorry, we have two subscriptions per month, so 120 US per month. And we might need to go up to a higher tier plan potentially. But it's not very expensive to be honest, like at this point. The only thing it costs is my time and energy. Yeah, I have a one guy. So this is entirely my idea. I started it a while ago, like maybe I came up with the idea probably about 6 months ago, something like that. And then as I started working on it, I he's like my closest friend. Like we grew up together, whatever. So, anyways, he's like similar mindset. He wants to be an entrepreneur as well, and he's good thinker, all that stuff. So we decided to partner up. I handle all of the like this type of stuff. He's working right now more on like simple things, like he does like UI. Um, you know, I would say I'm building the app. He's kind of worried about what it's gonna look like right now. So that's where we're at right now. But long term, he's gonna take more of a probably like a financial sort of role in the company. I would say more of like a CFO kind of role, maybe on the marketing side too. I don't know. But yeah, I'm trying to build a team because it's impossible to do this type of thing by yourself. Like you can build an app by yourself, but if you want to build a company, you can't do it by yourself. Or at least not as well as you can when you work with others. I'm trying to have a small team, probably like 3 to 5 people, something like that. I have one other person now that I'm gonna be bringing on actually for marketing. Um, yeah, because we need to get the ball rolling on marketing. So we're gonna start coming up with some sort of content strategy that we can do before the app is built. So it's me basically running the whole show, doing the majority of it of the important work. Then I have one guy kind of doing some vibe coding with me, working on more like surface level stuff. And then I'm probably gonna start working with one other guy in terms of leading the marketing and stuff like that. You seem curious. Are you interested in this idea? You think it's something worth thinking about or what? Okay, let me see what this said. It is definitely complicated, but I'm a dreamer. Let's see, bro. Let's see. Let's see. Maybe, but I'm gonna try. I think I'm very close. It's kind of like I had this moment, like probably about a week and a half ago, where I was thinking about the data structure that I had previously, and I was like, this is not gonna work. Like, it's just not gonna work. And then I sat like for days, like 3, 4 days, just thinking like, okay, how do I actually make this thing work? And it came to me and it clicked. And then I spent the last like week and a half building the entire plan around that initial idea I had, and it really makes sense to me. Like it seems like a very natural, intuitive way to do this type of thing. And I think I'm on the right track because it's starting to feel simple. Um, Obviously, there's a lot of complexity nested in it, but overall, the idea feels very simple to me now. What it is, the data structure is actually doing. So it definitely feels like I'm getting warm, and yeah, we're getting somewhere for sure. But you're right, it's definitely a complicated project. It's not easy to pull off with a few small guys, but sometimes that's how these stories go, right? Let's see. I'm not worried about the outcome. I'm just trying to do what I need to do every day, and that's it. And whatever happens will happen. Okay, so this did point out some potential edge cases, but I think we did handle them. What do you mean sell it or make people buy it? I don't understand that question. I don't understand. What do you mean? How will we make money? Yeah, people will pay to use it. Um, there's a few ideas we have initially. Oh, I see. Um, yeah, so we have two ideas. So there's going to be a B2B side, which is like sell it to a company kind of thing, where we're licensing seats per user basically. And the idea is that you can manage teams and, like, for example, say you're a fitness coach, right? You could have a license where all of your clients get to use it, and basically will help automate the entire fitness coaching process and also build like an entire pipeline for them, right? Where they get all the analytics for all of their clients like automatically, right? And then also it makes it a more attractive sale when they're trying to acquire new clients because they get to use this app that helps make their life better, and it's has this like the workout thing integrated into it. So there's definitely a B2B licensing side, but also it should definitely in the long term become just a consumer usable app where anyone can use it and go about their life with it, right? Just like Google Calendar, you can just go on it and schedule your day and become a better person. And yeah, but I mean, long term, if I sell it to a company, do you mean like sell the product and take a payment? I don't know. Let's see. Let's see. That's a totally different thing to consider in the future. It would depend how well the company's doing, how I feel about the product at that time, where I think if I sold it to somebody, like what direction they would take it. Because for me, this is not just something I'm building to make money, it's something I actually care about. Like, I genuinely think it's a very powerful idea that can really change the way the world works. So I'm not just totally worried about money, I'm more worried about does it do what I want it to do? And is it in the right hands and all that stuff? So let's see how it all plays out. But you seem very, at least in some sense, I would say interested, you should definitely follow and keep checking in and seeing where we're at. I think it's going to be a pretty interesting journey. And I think it's going to get pretty crazy in the next, I don't know, I'd say we're about a month or two away from picking up a lot of steam. Okay, let me just lock in here real quick. It's the last thing I need to do right now. Okay, you do point out some valid edge cases here, but to my understanding, we did handle these pretty well, at least in theory. Like for example, move that to 7. When there is that ambiguous case, it basically forces that link would have to be to the previous capture, or it would have to be like a specific utterance, like move that gym session to 7, where then it could reason across the k equals 15 pack. Then again for cancel gym, so this one is something I had thought about, right? Like say the user goes to the gym twice in the day, it won't know which one to cancel if both, right? Gym at 5 while viewing tomorrow's schedule is, I think that's a user problem, right? Like you should be on the right page while you're scheduling. I think that's fine to ignore. Like if they say gym at 5 on this day, then we've already accounted for that. But if they just say gym at 5 and they're on a different page, I mean, it should just schedule a gym at 5 on that page. The user can't figure out how to just go back to another page to schedule their gym at 5. I don't know. Maybe they should just, I don't know. You know what I mean? That's not really an issue. So missing duration with a valid anchor. Should the grid show a stub or only chat? So this is something I've actually already designed out. So this is actually already accounted for. Basically, the way it works is it shows like a temporary little entry, and it has information nested inside of it regarding the fact that the duration is missing and the user actually gets prompted. So I don't know if that's explicitly in the North Star or the Phase 3 transfer contracts file right now, but that is how that is handled. Basically, like there are specific prompts the user gets when certain types of data is missing, which I thought I had already accounted for in these documents. Template black rows where one entry commits and another is blocked. I'm not sure what you mean by that. We're trying the same capture after a network server fail. Yeah, so this is something I actually haven't thought about at all. I think basically the way we handle this is anytime there's a network or server failure, the row just essentially gets cleaned up if it was partially persisted or something. Or, you know, like it needs to be some explicit rule where when the network or server goes down, it just, you know, that input is essentially just disregarded in some way. Either it never gets persisted or it's removed from persistence. So maybe we need some sort of flag regarding like server state inside of the metadata column. That's possible. And then one-off insertion inside an already materialized daily pack. Yeah, so we actually very explicitly accounted for this. If you read through the North Star, we should definitely have a lot of information on how we handled this. And then legacy confirm, undo, grace, accept a new version. Yeah, so that whole thing is different now depending on the new data structure, and I haven't exactly ironed out how that's going to work in practice, but more so what I was getting at is aside from all the like the UI technicalities of, you know, how these buttons are going to work, just does the data structure actually support the core loop? And is there any contradictions in what the core loop needs to accomplish and what the data structure supports, right? All of the nitty gritties of how the UI is actually going to accomplish that is a later issue. and we still need to obviously write all the prompts for the LLM to actually do all of this still. But basically, the goal here in this pass is to look over the North Star and the Phase 3 transfer contracts file and figure out, does this data structure have any gaps in its ability to support the app's functionality if the UI is designed correctly and if the LLM prompts do what these two plan files say. In terms of what you said to do next, yeah, basically I think we need to iron out this transfer contracts file, and then the next step I think is actually writing the LLM prompts that would map to essentially this transfer contracts section. And then obviously, yeah, respecting all of the, the legacy bridge and everything like that that you mentioned. Because to be honest, we actually don't want to bridge with the old structure. We kind of basically are going to be designing it from scratch, given this new data structure, and maybe kind of reusing some of the older ideas, but there isn't really much of a legacy bridge, to be honest. So yeah, that's basically where I'm at for now. Okay, good. This is what I wanted. This is what I wanted to see here. Yeah, so we're in a very good spot here. This is true. This is the one issue. Okay, given your new understanding, I want you to do a full sweep of both the North Star and the Phase 3 transfer contracts file. You're still only allowed to write within the transfer contracts file. And I want you to make sure there's nothing stale or contradictory or not aligned with this new understanding that you have. I think your first pass might have added things that were not really relevant to what we were actually concerned about, especially regarding like legacy bridges and everything. I actually want you to make an explicit note, so that when we do the merge with the North Star, that the context includes the fact that we're not going to be building off of the legacy. We are going to be essentially building from scratch on this new data structure while still potentially implementing some minor ideas from the legacy. So yeah, go ahead and do that pass right now. Again, you're reading across transfer contracts, you're reading across the LifeOS North Star, but you're only writing to the transfer contracts plan file. And we need to make sure that there's nothing stale, nothing contradictory, and we have any relevant merge context for what we're going to need to get aligned with the North Star later inside of the transfer contracts plan file. Okay, so this is going to be the last thing I do here today. And then tomorrow when I start, I'm going to go through everything when I have a fresh mind. Mhm. I think honestly, like the best thing to do now might actually just be to try it. Like intuitively, I can tell that it's like pretty much there, and to in theory account for everything, it's almost impossible. But I think it's like pretty close. And I think maybe the best way to expose the weaknesses is now to implement it because I think the underlying structure is there. So I think actually what we're gonna do tomorrow, the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna come up with the LLM prompts and then we're basically gonna do an assessment of how to go about building this step by step. Like basically follow through the North Star and what's the best way to build it step by step. And then start testing it actually, I think is probably where we're at now. I don't think we need much more thinking about it because it's like at least 90% there. And if there is another 10%, it will expose itself through use. Okay, so I think I just want to trust my intuition a little bit here. And instead of reading over these documents too much, I can sense that we're in a very strong place. I would say we're at least about 90% there in terms of the data structure being able to support what we want it to in terms of functionality. And I think if there is another, few percentages of things that we haven't thought about yet, it would be a lot quicker to uncover those issues via actual testing and implementation rather than thinking about it in theory. I think on the theory side, we've come very far, and I think we're in a very strong place to actually start, maybe building. You can push back on this if you disagree, but basically, what I think to get to that actual building stage now, what we need to do is basically merge the phase three transfer contracts plan file with the North Star, and that merge basically needs to account for any inconsistencies, anything stale, any old context in the North Star which contradicts what's in the transfer contracts file now would need to be updated such that there's no longer any contradictions. All of the examples need to be updated as such as well. Just all of the context across the two files need to be coherent once the merge happens from the transfer contracts file to the North Star file. And then once that merge is done, the next thing we need to do is basically draft all of the LLM prompts to support the functionality inside of the app. And then I think once we have that layer done, where we have, the Life OS North Star with all of the full context required for the data structure, transfer contracts, and we have the LLM prompts and everything, we would then basically come up with a plan to discreetly implement the Life OS North Star file in a build path, like one by one, very discreetly. So we can test each section iteratively, one by one, rather than building it all at once and then not knowing where things are going wrong. So that's basically where I'm at right now. Let me know what you think about that, and then let me know what you think we should do next in order to make all of this happen. Okay, so what I want you to do right now is step one. I want you to do the merge with the North Star, and I want you to do exactly what it is you just said. Meaning remove anything stale, make sure there's no contradictions, make sure whatever was old in the North Star that contradicts what is new in the transfer contracts file is updated such that any contradictions are resolved. Make sure the examples are fully aligned with the final data structures. Add any other explicit context that you think would be necessary to promote the success of the actual downstream building. I'll leave it up to you to decide how to handle this merge in the best way. The goal is to have one canonical document that we can go ahead and essentially do step 2 and step 3 on top of later. So I'm curious how much usage this is for just planning mode. Okay, so it's quite a bit. It's okay, it's worth doing this test to see. Forget exactly what I was at before, but I'm so hungry right now, it's crazy. Okay, I'm gonna go get a granola bar. So this prompt used 3%, which is fine. It's a huge task. There we go. Okay, now that everything is in the North Star file, I want you to do one final full sweep of that file. I need you to think very carefully through everything in here, and I want you to check it for these things. The first thing I want you to check is to see if everything that needs to be accounted for has been accounted for in terms of supporting app functionality. If you notice any obvious edge cases or things that are missing or things that you think will not work with this data structure, let me know. The second thing I want you to do is make sure that there's no inconsistencies across the document, meaning that nothing contradicts anything else. Make sure everything is internally consistent. I also want you to make sure that there's no stale context, meaning there's nothing that used to be valid that no longer is and is just lingering around because a previous pass forgot to remove it or something like that. After you do all of that, I want you to finally think about whether you think this document can be restructured in order to simplify some sort of building process on top of it. Basically, just I want you to think through whether this document can be simplified in any way without actually losing any of the important logic. I don't want to lose any context, but I do want to know if you think it's possible to either restructure this in a better way so it's more readable or easier to build on top of, or if the sections could be reordered in a way that was more intuitive and made more sense. You don't have to come up with a yes for that answer. You could say, yep, it's in a good spot already, but let me know what you think for that specific case. So I'm actually gonna get the LLM prompts done now too, I think. And then I'm gonna merge that back with the main, and then that's where I'll stop today. And then tomorrow I might actually start with basically come up with the. Actually, you know what? I think I'm gonna leave the LLM prompts for tomorrow. I don't know, let's see. Why? What have you done? Because I actually might be building tomorrow, so I was gonna text you when I was done where you're at. Do you have a template that I can work from or what? So what I need to do then basically is what do you mean? Okay. Basically, I need to just tell the LLM what you've done and what I'm trying to do, and tell it to basically create a branch off of the main that accomplishes supporting like that, basically, and then just see what it does. Basically, I want to keep my old schedule page functionality while I'm going intact. Actually, I guess it's already on the main, so like it's fine. Like can literally just make a new branch off the main and say fucking this is what I'm trying to do, this is what he's done. Grab whatever you need from his branch so I can get started from there. And that's basically it. So what does your repo do right now? You can log in and what? There's a blank schedule page. Do you have the exercise thing or what? Yeah, I bet you want to show me. I bet you do. Okay, do the cleanup pass accounting for everything you just mentioned. So under the section where you said main issues to clean up, when you're referring to this issue with memory links, um, you're saying it conflicts with the clean rebuild stance and top level memory links rule. Um, are you referring to something in Legacy? I'm not really sure what the issue is that you're seeing with memory links. Yeah, Legacy is not going to be compatible with memory links. Like I said, we're not building on top of any legacy logic. This is completely new. For open dialogues, yes, OpenDat is something that is required now. It should be in the examples because this is basically how we know when to retire unanswered open dialogues based on some time duration. Um, Validation should also include expired now. That's correct. Some old being examples still use the old single key shape. Yeah, so make sure that contradiction doesn't exist. Um, yeah, make sure there's nothing contradictory in terms of this orchestration note, omitting the validator flow, and then yeah, being at execution does need to be added. Um, so we talked about that inside of the phase 3 transfer contract file, and it should have been appropriately placed where it needed to be inside of the North Star, but I guess you're saying it hasn't. So basically, what this is referring to is that scheduling segments get two being links associated with them essentially. So there's being at scheduling time and then being at execution. Um, I'm sure you can figure out what I'm talking to if you just read across the relevant files, you'll know what I mean. That should be accounted for. And then when you say define top level transfer outcomes, um, are you referring to the deliverable side? Because it's only ever one row at a time. So you would only ever have one of the cases. There would never be a mixed row. On the input capture side, I don't think that's what you're referring to. So yeah, just clear up what you mean about this transfer outcomes dot schedule dot status. Not entirely sure. Um, what is IANA time zone? I don't know what that means, but it sounds maybe important to have. So let me know what that means. And then yeah, we definitely need the server failure rules set. So I'm not exactly sure how to handle that. So I'll let you just come up with the best way you think, and then you can just tell me what you came up with. And then in terms of restructuring the shape of the North Star, yeah, what you recommended makes a lot of sense. So I just want to make sure first we go over everything I just said, come up with a nice clear plan, make sure we're aligned, and then you can go ahead and implement it as well as rebuilding the structure of the North Star document. I just need to explicitly make sure we're not losing any logic. We're just reorganizing it in a more logical way. Hello, shadows. Are we truly free? Are we? Or are we just present what we think we see? Is this life we're living real or a dream? A kaleidoscope of wonder? Or so it may seem. We dance on the edge of what's fake and what's true. The mystery of existence in your hearts will pursue. Fucking motherfucker. Mother. I gotta turn this one. I see. Okay, everything's looking good. The only thing I don't fully understand still is this transfer outcomes dot schedule dot status. So just explain what this actually is. Based on what I'm reading right now, it sounds like an entry inside of the input capture row. And I think the problem you were pointing out is when there's multiple uh types of things going on inside the input capture row, how can we handle those multiple statuses, I think is basically what you're getting at. So yeah, paint me a clearer picture of the problem and help me understand what you're actually trying to get at here, and then I'll let you know how I want to solve that. And I think that's the last issue to clear up here before we do the final pass. Let me see. What do we got? What do we got? What do we got? What do we got? So we got a page. We got a page. We open it. Bench. Bench. Did you just copy what heavy does for the? Looks like it's just heavy. So what the fuck is explore? Like search exercises or what? I don't know if that explore button makes sense. Anyways, it's fine. Bagger. Bagger routine. Explore, like that's the like you can search your routines, you mean? Also, it's here where it says start routine, it would be more like schedule routine. Something like that. But anyways, I think the general structure is okay. Hold on, let me see what happens when you click. So push, pull, legs, arms. I would say get rid of arms. Like it's just maybe upper body. I don't know. I guess people do arm days, right? So arms is the one that feels weird. I guess you need it. Yeah, the functionality is good, but I'm just like looking at what it actually looks like. But yeah, the functionality is good. And then the schedule is the default page, right? So you can add them. Okay. Yeah, it looks pretty good. It's a good structure, I think. Shouldn't there just be multiple? So shouldn't there just be multiple allowed entries inside of transfer outcomes? Like, say you have two schedule things, one's like committed and one's whatever. You can just have two separate entries and then just show the correct index for where it points to in the source schedule entry index, right? So I feel like this pretty easily already supports the different types. Like you can just have multiple entries inside of transfer outcomes and then you just point them to what they're referring to in the state of action or state of being branch via the correct indexing, right? Like I think that's all it is, right? Doesn't that make sense? Okay, so basically I can go here and if I pull your branch, I can just start building on top of the schedule page now. How do you think it looks like right now? Like, how does it feel? The exercise thing looks like cluttered, but I think I think it looks pretty good from like a app flow perspective, like the way the like you navigate through the pages and that type of stuff. Like I think the flow is generally pretty solid. Yeah, we'll work on the fitness thing, like how it actually looks, but the flow is pretty good now, I think. Like between pages and everything. So one thing I'm noticing is when you swap from schedule to toolkits, it very quickly closes the thing and goes back to LifeOS like that. It was a bit quick. That's like the main thing that is probably not. Yeah, like it should stay on toolkits and show you that it's orange for a second before like putting LifeOS back. Need to be very specific with terminology. What do you mean? Like for prompting? Yeah, of course, yeah. Or else it doesn't know what the fuck you're talking about. Yeah, yeah, it's not a big deal. But yeah, the flow, I think the flow is good. I don't think it's just UI, like it's everything. Like you need to be careful with your words, yeah. Schedules, root page, so login goes there. Okay, good. Yeah, it looks good though. Like the animations look smooth. Oh, can you swipe? Like if you go like this, will it go to like the next page, or you have to click the LifeOS thing? So I refer to it as the root page, you're saying, or what? I think it's yeah, yeah, I see. I see. So are you telling me to like what do I tell it to build on top of? What's the page called? Yeah, yeah, I get it. So what am I supposed to be building on top of? Like the root page is called what? And then the like what's the names of things? Like is there a name for the template overlay and then the schedule is its own block inside of that or what? Like how does it work? If I see a repo, I would know. But I can't see it, so I don't know. Which I guess I could go look on GitHub. So schedule basically refers to just the body. So I'm supposed to be building on that. So schedule means between the banners for the schedule page. And you're telling me build there, like that's fine. Or should I call that the root page? Like are you saying just when I'm building, like call the schedule page the root page? Is that what you're saying? The options in the top banner are I have to see the repo to know what you mean. Cause that okay, so if they're root pages, like what does that consist of? Like the template and then an empty thing? Or what? Like, what does the root page actually consist of? And then what are you supposed to add? You only add to the inner part, right? And then what I'm asking is, what are the names of those? Like, is it always? No, I get it. But what I'm saying is that root page includes what? The template plus the inner block that's empty, basically. Yeah, okay, I see. I see. So then when you're building, like when I'm building on the schedule page, do I call it the schedule page or what do you call it? Schedule page. Okay, so the schedule page is the root page, and then you just add on top of that for the root for schedules is what I mean. So then you branch off of that page. Is that right? I don't think I need to add pages. I think it would just be bubbles on top of that page. So I probably yeah, it's probably just overlays. Yeah. But like, does the template root page exist right now or no? Would I need to make that? So I'm going to need to make it if it doesn't exist. Like, is there a blank template page the same way there is schedule right now or no? Okay, yes. And it's just blank, right? It's just blank, like this. It's the same thing as schedule right now. It's just called template. So I can build on that too if I want. So the rule is basically if I want to make a new page from the template page, I branch off that page, and then anytime I want to add an overlay on the page I'm on, you just put an overlay on that page, and that's it. Yeah, why don't you do that? Can you do that now or no? Just remove it and push it if you can. If not, I'll do it. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Where is the sign out button? Oh, that's on the template page. Yeah, yeah. So that should be moved to, yeah, that should be moved to probably in the top right, like to the right of where the Life OS thing is. There should just be like the settings thing, and the logout should be there. Like long term, that's probably where it should be. Something like that. Profile page. True, true. Okay. Yeah, that works. That works. Okay, so why not just move it there? Move it to the profile page and just have the sign out button there, and then get rid of the other buttons from the template page. Yeah, I think in this case it makes sense to omit the top level status because the status is a mix of whatever exists inside of transfer outcomes. So I think that makes sense. Let's make sure this context is a part of the North Star cleanup plan file that you're developing right now. Make sure all of that's implemented, and then we're going to go ahead and do this final cleanup pass. Is there anything else you can think of before we go ahead and do this final cleanup pass? Yep, do it. You should be good to do it now. I switched it to agent mode. This is going to be the last thing I do here. So I think this just used a good amount of usage. About 10%. Should be done in a second here. Okay, this is where I am going to pretty much call it for today. Let me let this wrap up. Bye. Okay, it's done. Let's see. The amount of complexity inside of this document is actually just insane. Okay, I am done here. What is this? Okay, that's the branch. Got it. Okay, okay. Tomorrow I'm gonna build prompts and then probably start building because you are now done with the UI, so it's perfect timing.